Hi, this is Caroline Spaulding, and I'm presenting my case study for EDL 852. So first we will discuss section 1, the fact report. So we are preparing to open a new middle school called Lightville Middle School. The introductory statement for section 1 is the issue is Susan Potter was voted by her committee to draft a philosophy, the basis for a mission and vision statement for the new middle school, and further tasked to present it to the committee for approval. We know two things. She wants this to be collaborative, and that feeling has not been heard. We also know that she needs to set norms which reflect the school's core values and priorities. So, who is Susan Potter? She's the new middle school principal. She was hired August 1st to approximately 12 months prior to opening the new middle school. She's an experienced middle school teacher. She most recently was an assistant principal in a suburban district, and she views this new job as a challenge. She's from a suburban area, so being in a rural area is not the most comfortable to her, but she views it as a challenge, so that's positive. Who else is involved? The Visioning and Planning Committee, which includes Ms. Potter, 4 teachers, 4 parents. It was put together by Ms. Potter after seeking input from the superintendent and the board. So it should be important to note that Ms. Potter has sought collaborative input. Who else is involved? Helen Burke. She's the committee chair, and it should be noted that she only agrees to be chair with help from Susan Potter. She teaches English and social studies, and she has made it known that her brother's on the board, who was influential in the controversial decision to build the middle school. She also actively campaigned for the new middle school. Some other interesting facts. So, what is taking place? We're preparing to open a new middle school. There's been a broad-based committee to develop a vision statement. Currently, there's an elementary that's K through 6. It was opened 22 years ago. There's also currently a junior-senior high school. This serves 7th through 12th graders. It was constructed 11 years after the elementary school. So why is this important? The population is increasing. The district demography and land values have low land costs. The new schools have attracted more people. Enrollment has been steadily increasing by 2% each year. Helen Burke has made multiple comments towards Susan that can be viewed as hostile. For example, she once said to Susan, "My brother, who's also the school board member, says you're a visionary leader. He thinks you should design our middle school philosophy and draft our mission and vision statements." And this was in response when Ms. Potter was trying to explain her feelings towards having a collaborative vision statement. So when Helen brought up the fact that her brother's on the school board and was explaining that her brother says that Ms. Potter's a visionary leader, those things could be viewed as hostile. So that's an important consideration. So where does this take place? It is a rural community. It's 2 miles from Lightville, which is within 10 miles of a major city. Part of what is important about this is that we know that Susan Potter wants this to be a collaborative decision. So Ms. Potter previously presented committee guidelines that she wanted everything to operate democratically. She said she wanted decisions based on consensus. She tasked the committee with developing a vision statement, and the vision statement should reflect the collective core values and beliefs. She also set the guideline that stakeholders will be given the opportunity to make suggestions and to respond to suggestions made by others. She previously expressed her thoughts on the development process for the philosophy, mission, and vision statements to the planning committee. A vision statement should reflect the collective thinking of stakeholders. Committee members and subsequently others should have opportunities to promote their beliefs and hopes. She's also new to the community, so she has made it known that she's not very comfortable doing this by herself. She's uncomfortable making these decisions by herself. We also know that she wants this to be collaborative because she, at one point, has stated, "I will share my philosophy and facilitate decisions, but I don't want to be an autocrat. Nor do I want to be put in a position where everyone blindly accepts what I propose." We also know that she needs to set norms which reflect the school's core values and priorities. According to Big Think 2016, Big Think claims that psychological safety is critical to building a successful and productive team. They suggest that psychological safety is formed by having the presence of quality conversational turn-taking and social sensitivity on the team. Big Think 2016 implies that team members need to feel heard in order for quality conversational turn-taking to be present. Social sensitivity is the ability to interpret and appropriately respond to others by watching their nonverbal gestures. So she needs to set these norms to reflect schools' core values and priorities because it's proven that when successful teams have social sensitivity, they have quality conversational turn-taking, they're more likely to be successful and productive. Next, we have legal and ethical considerations. Our Section 2 introductory statement is based on some ethical issues. The ethical issues for this case include modeling norms such as integrity and trust. Integrity. Ms. Potter will continue to advocate for the mission and vision statements to be developed collaboratively because it is what she knows is right. Trust. Ms. Potter will model trustworthy behavior by not accepting a rubber stamp of approval for unilateral decisions. Previously, we mentioned that she needs to set norms which reflect schools' core values and priorities. This is also an ethical consideration. According to NPBEA, candidates who successfully complete a building-level educational leadership preparation program understand and demonstrate the capacity to promote the current and future success and well-being of each student and adult by applying the knowledge, skills, and commitments necessary to understand and demonstrate the capacity to advocate for ethical decisions and cultivate and enact professional norms. Now we have Section 3's introductory statement. This brings forth some aspects. The aspects of this topic include establishing school norms while collaboratively developing a philosophy statement. Collaboratively, Susan Potter will need to consider options for collaboration. Establishing norms, modeling behavior, consideration of past district values, involving others in making decisions, communicating clearly. Next, we have Sections 4, Introductory Statement. Analysis. The known facts include task, location, people, school, enrollment history, recent interactions, and best practices, while the unknown facts include demographic details and influential characters. Enrollment. If the district is increasing at approximately 2% each year, in 10 years, there will be approximately 1,500 students in the district, which means the middle school, if operating the same as it would be this year, would have 340 to 350 middle school students. Demographics. We do know some of the demographics of our committee, but we don't know all of them. So it's important to consider demographics of the committee, the school, the community. What are the racial demographics? What are the ratios of males to females? What are some of the personalities? What is involved in the demographics of our committee, school, and community? Individual influencers. Helen Burke is known. What about other connections or relationships? We do know that she has a brother on the school board. Are there other relationships or connections within this committee? Are there other known connections in the school or the community that could be helpful or hurtful to our situation? Part of our comprehensive analysis in Section 4 is the consideration of people, place, and program. The people involved so far are Susan Potter, the new principal, Helen Burke, a middle school English and social studies teacher who has been influential in having Susan develop the philosophy statement without collaboration, despite Susan's insistence of having other input. Joe Rawlings, who's the superintendent, and other committee members. The place is a rural community. It is near Lightville. And the program is a new middle school, which will have 6th through 8th grade. Part of the program consideration is the scope of the curriculum, extracurricular programs, and instructional approaches, which the superintendent, Joe Rawlings, has tasked Susan with determining those things, those programs for the new middle school. And typically those things would be based on the philosophy, mission, and vision statements. Now we have Section 5, Review and Prioritize. Section 5's introductory statement says, reviewing assumptions has revealed potential damages and identified stakeholders, while noting the need for additional information needed to make a collaborative, ethical decision. It's important to consider damaging effects, stakeholders consulted, more information needed, and is there enough information to make a decision? So, damaging effects, relationships and trust. So as Susan is making decisions and conducting herself in front of the committee and school and leadership team, she needs to be aware of the relationships that she's building and the trust that she is building. Stakeholders consulted. So we have Susan Potter, Helen Burke, Joe Rawlings, the superintendent, the committee, school, students, staff, parents, they will need to be consulted, and the community. So those people, Susan, Helen, and Joe have been involved, and the committee has been involved. But so far, the school and community really have not been involved as much. More information needed would be demographic details of the committee, school, and community, and other connections or relationships that might be helpful or hurtful to this situation. Is there enough information to make a decision? So we need to answer some unknown questions, find out the answer to our unknown information, and then identify some options, evaluate options, and then choose our best option. Education World said, many decisions in schools need staff support for successful implementation and results. A collaborative model often increases buy-in and support. So that's just another reason that Susan Potter would want to continue her need to have a collaborative decision-making process. And it also would just help to have buy-in from her staff, and it would build trust, especially with those that are on the committee and other people in the school and community. Next, we have Section 6, Options and Consequences. So the Section 6 introductory statement is integrating alternate, divergent, and contradictory perspectives and ideas has revealed a wide variety of options and consequences. In action, write a unilateral philosophy statement, present committee with additional options, gather collaborative input from all stakeholders without the committee, gather input from the leadership team. So some important consequences to consider. Most importantly, ethical considerations need to always be considered, but I'd also like to add some other consequences that might be involved. The relationships that might be hurt or built upon decision making, her reputation. If she goes with what Helen wants to do, then is she going to be seen as somebody who will just do what others want to do? Or will she be seen as holding out for something that's a more transparent decision? Duties and responsibilities. She was told by the superintendent to make some decisions on curriculum, scope, sequence that would be determinant upon the philosophy, mission, and vision statements. So is she going to be fulfilling her duties and responsibilities? The timeliness. She does have 12 months before school is going to be starting, but she will need to make sure that she has these things taken care of and planned for. Curriculum choices. They will need to be based on the philosophy, mission, and vision statement. So those curriculum choices will be determinant upon those things. Professional learning needs. So in the future, when teachers are considering professional learning, professional development, those things will also be determined upon what the school's philosophy and mission and vision will be. So some options and consequences. In action, Ms. Potter does not proceed. There's no statement written. Number 2, she would write a unilateral philosophy statement. Ms. Potter writes the philosophy statement without input. She presents the unilateral philosophy statement to the committee. Option 3, present the committee with additional options for gathering input to form statement. Statement is not written immediately. Ms. Potter revisits guidelines with committee. Another meeting is held. Option 4, gather collaborative input from all stakeholders without the committee. Use information to form a statement. Ms. Potter gathers input despite committee decisions. Ms. Potter writes statement after gathering input. Gather input from leadership team for option 5. Use information to form a statement. Ms. Potter gathers input from select people despite committee decisions. And Ms. Potter writes statement after gathering input. Section 7, introductory statement, pros and cons. Evaluation of relevant supported limitations and implications include the consideration of relationships, reputation, duties and responsibilities, timing, curriculum choices, and professional learning needs. So we have inaction, write a unilateral philosophy statement, present committee with additional options, gather collaborative input from all stakeholders without committee, and gather input from leadership team. So let's consider some pros and cons of option 1, the inaction. The philosophy is not established. She would be insubordinate because she was tasked with doing this job. Her reputation is at stake. If she has no action, people could see her as maybe lazy or not doing her job. There could be confusion among committee members who previously voted to have her write the philosophy statement. Programming decisions are not based on the values of the stakeholders. If there's no action, then she's not really making decisions that are based on their values. Option 2, write a unilateral philosophy statement. The philosophy is not reflective of stakeholders. Programming decisions are not based on the values of stakeholders. Her reputation is at stake in this again, because this could be seen as her trying to just do things without anyone's input. It would be timely because she would be doing it all on her own, so it would happen very quickly. But that really kind of is the only pro for option 2. And really between options 1 and 2, option 1 really didn't have any pros, and option 2's only pro was that it was timely. So option 3, present the committee with additional options for gathering input to form the statement. Philosophy possibly not established in time. Programming decisions delayed or not based on the philosophy, mission, and vision. But she would be building relationships, establishing norms. And so it is possible that the philosophy and the programming would not come out exactly as she intended, but she would be building relationships and establishing norms. And it is also possible that the philosophy is established in time, and it is still possible that the programming decisions would be made based on the philosophy, mission, and vision. Option 4, gather collaborative input from all stakeholders without the committee and use the information to form a statement. The statement is reflective of stakeholders. She would need to consider her reputation. There might be confusion because if she went ahead and got input after being told by the committee just to do it on her own, it would be timely, but the reputation and confusion might outweigh those benefits. Option 5 is to gather input from leadership team, use information to form a statement. So the philosophy is not reflective of stakeholders. Scope of curriculum, extracurricular programs, and instructional approaches are not reflective of all stakeholders. And reputation is also at stake. It could be timely. And again on this, if we look at options 3, 4, and 5, really option 5 has some pretty big consequences. That it would only be timely would be the only pro. So it's really time to start weighing some of our pros and cons. Which brings us to Section 8, choosing the best option. The introductory statement for Section 8 is choosing the best option requires consideration of resources, organization, communication, and implementation. So I felt strongly that option 3 was the best option, which is to present the committee with additional options for gathering input to form a statement. The philosophy is possibly not established in time, but it could be. Programming decisions could be delayed or not based on the philosophy, mission, and vision, but for sure she would be building some relationships and establishing norms. When she's choosing the best option, it's important for her to consider resources, so people within the committee, outside resources, information, district information, demographics, history of the district, history of their mission and vision statements, data, reasoning for promoting collaborative methods. Another important consideration when choosing the best option is the organization. So she needs to have information from all sources. The committee, reach out to additional sources, prepare additional options to present to the committee. She should prepare relatable research, prepare for responses, and prepare explanation of importance of consulting the stakeholders. Communication. Honestly, I think she should start with Helen Burke. If this were me, I would communicate my respect for her influence in the community, my respect for her input that she's given us so far, and all the help that she's provided. I'd communicate my intentions to her and gather some input from her and consider some options. And I would maintain transparency and set norms. I would let her know up front, this is what I want to do. I'm coming back to you with the committee, and I want to look further into this to make sure we're making a good decision for everyone. Next, it would be important to communicate to the committee. So communicate your appreciation for their time and your respect for their insider input. There's a reason that they were chosen to be on that committee, so it's important that you communicate your appreciation to them. Communicate your intentions to them, and always maintain transparency and set norms. Another important consideration when choosing the best option is the implementation in the school setting. So, most careful and thoughtful method, consideration of stakeholders, consideration of setting norms, and maintaining transparency. Section 9, the implementation of the plan. So we're almost winding down here to the end of our decision. The implementation plan for Section 9, the introductory statement is, successful implementation in the school setting involves careful consideration of comprehensive planning steps, possible outcomes, involvement of others, help with implementation, communication of possible realistic consequences, and an alternative plan. So we have some comprehensive planning steps. Start with Helen Burke, have an informal conversation with her, and expect the best outcome. If you go into the meeting and have, if you exhibit that you're nervous or you try to intimidate her, it might not come off as well. So just go in expecting the best and avoid intimidation. Have prepared reasoning. Relate reasoning to Helen Burke's experiences, so make it relatable to her. And state the facts. Some possible outcomes. Helen will not respond favorably. That is a possible outcome. So we could involve her brother that's on the board, attempt to involve others. Another possible outcome is that Helen will be very open to the new options of collaborating with others. And I would do the exact same thing. I would involve her brother that's on the board, attempt to involve others, and build relationships. It's very obvious that Helen's brother is important to her because she's made those comments before to Susan. So I think that whether it goes favorably or unfavorably, it would be important to ask Helen, how could we involve your brother? How could we involve you in this decision? Section 9, involvement of others. So some possibilities are committee members, additional staff, leadership, parents, students, and the community. Help with implementation. Make sure that you're making an informed decision, consideration of facts and options, and focus on an informal approach. I always find it best to talk to people in the most informal way possible so that you're just having a conversation and you're not trying to intimidate them. If you need additional help, remember that intimidating can get in the way and roadblocks. Communication of consequences. Talk to Helen about consequences, be honest and open, and model desired norms when you're speaking to her. I think it would be really important to go to her first and say, I'm concerned about these consequences, but I respect you, Helen, so I want to be honest and open. And in doing that, you'd be modeling desired norms for your school. Have an alternative plan. Communicate to Helen. Respect her perspective. Tell her your plan and model norms. Communicate to the committee. Respect their input. Communicate your plan and model norms. In conclusion, for section 10, our introductory statement for this slide is it's important to keep ethics and priorities in mind while making decisions. Also, keep in mind your role as a leader and your importance as a leader. Those things go really far when you're expected to model ethical norms, so those are really important to keep in mind. It's also important to keep in mind the role and importance of the school mission and vision. Those things are going to drive your instruction, your professional development, and the method you take to develop those things will be reflective of school norms that you plan to set for your school and community. Here are my references, and that is the end. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments, please notify me, Caroline Spaulding, at this email address, spaulcar@usd437.net. Thank you.